Somewhere right now, someone is holding a lottery ticket and imagining exactly how their life is about to change. New house, new car, quitting their job by Friday. Here's the part almost nobody imagines in that moment. A striking number of lottery winners end up back where they started within a few years, broke, in some cases even worse off than before they won, sometimes with fractured families and lawsuits to show for it. That's not bad luck. It's not a coincidence either. There's a specific, predictable reason sudden money destroys so many lives, and by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what it is, and why it has almost nothing to do with the money itself. We tend to think of financial problems as a math problem. Not enough income, too many expenses, bad luck. Fix the math, fix the problem. Winning the lottery seems like the ultimate fix, an instant, overwhelming correction to the math. But here's what actually keeps showing up in story after story of lottery winners who lost all. The money wasn't the problem, and it wasn't the solution either. The underlying financial habits, family dynamics, and decision-making patterns that existed before the win didn't disappear just because a number changed. They just got a much bigger amount of money to operate on. Here's the core idea to understand. Money doesn't change who you are. It amplifies who you already are. If you already have a habit of spending slightly more than feels comfortable, that habit doesn't vanish with a windfall. It just gets applied to a much larger number, and it takes longer to notice the damage because the starting pile felt so enormous. If you already struggle to say no to family members asking for help, winning a huge sum doesn't give you a new skill for setting boundaries. It just puts you in a room with dramatically higher financial stakes and the exact same difficulty, saying no. Sudden wealth acts like a magnifying glass. Whatever financial patterns already existed just get bigger and more consequential, not better. Let's talk about why this specific kind of wealth, sudden, unearned, and enormous, is uniquely dangerous compared to wealth built up gradually over years. When people build wealth slowly, they're forced to develop financial skills along the way. They learn what it feels like to make a bad investment and recover from it. They build habits around saving before they have enough money for those habits to be tested at high stakes. By the time their net worth grows large, their financial instincts have usually grown alongside it. A lottery win skips all of that. It hands someone the financial stakes of a wealthy person without giving them any of the years of practice that usually come with getting there. It's the equivalent of handing someone the keys to a race car with no driving lessons, purely because they happen to be standing in the right spot. Here's a factor that gets overlooked constantly. Winning creates a sudden, massive target for other people's expectations. Family members who never asked for money before suddenly have a very specific number in mind. Friends reappear. Distant relatives resurface. Every single one of these requests feels, individually, like a reasonable ask from someone who genuinely needs help, and saying no to any one of them feels almost cruel when you're sitting on an enormous, life-changing sum. But here's the trap. There's no natural stopping point. If you say yes to one request because refusing feels wrong, you've essentially set the precedent that the money is available whenever it's asked for. Family conflict, resentment, and even lawsuits among winners' own relatives are recurring themes in these stories, not because the winners were bad people, but because nobody prepared them for how to say no to people they loved, at a scale where every no now felt enormous. There's also a quieter, less obvious cost. Sudden money can dissolve the identity someone had built before the windfall. Work, for most people, isn't just about income. It provides structure, purpose, a sense of contribution, and a social circle. When someone quits a job the moment they win, they're not just losing a paycheck they no longer need. They're losing the entire framework that organized their days and gave them a role in the world. Many winners report a strange emptiness that shows up months after the initial excitement fades, once the newness of spending wears off, and there's nothing left to fill the space where work used to be. This is a huge part of why so many lottery winners report being less happy a few years after winning than they expected, not because money can't help at all, but because it solved a problem they didn't actually have while leaving several problems they did have completely untouched. Here's one more mechanism worth understanding. An ordinary person suddenly has to make an enormous number of complex financial decisions all at once, with no prior experience making decisions at that scale. What do you do with a lump sum versus an annuity? How do you evaluate an investment opportunity someone's pitching you the week after your win is announced? Who do you trust for legal or tax advice when you've never needed either before? Normally, people build this kind of decision-making skill gradually, one modest decision at a time, over years. A lottery winner is asked to make a decade's worth of high-stakes financial decisions in the span of a few months, often while being actively targeted by people who specifically look for newly wealthy, financially inexperienced people to take advantage of. So, what separates the lottery winners who keep their wealth from the ones who lose it? The pattern that shows up again and again isn't intelligence or luck. Its structure. Winners who do well tend to slow the entire process down deliberately, waiting months before making major decisions, working with genuinely independent financial and legal professionals rather than the first person who reaches out, and setting clear, communicated boundaries with family before requests start pouring in, rather than improvising boundaries in the moment under emotional pressure. They also tend to preserve some version of structure and purpose in their daily life, rather than assuming that removing all obligations automatically produces happiness. Money that removes structure without replacing it with anything tends to create a void, not freedom. Here's the broader lesson, and it applies even if you never win $1 from a lottery ticket in your life. Any sudden increase in money, a bonus, an inheritance, a big raise, carries some version of this same risk. The habits, boundaries, and identity you already have don't upgrade automatically just because your bank balance did. If anything, more money simply raises the stakes on whatever patterns were already quietly present. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The lottery didn't ruin those people's lives. It revealed exactly what was already fragile, and then handed it an amount of money large enough to make that fragility impossible to ignore. The people who actually build lasting security aren't the ones who get the biggest windfall. They're the ones who build the habits and boundaries strong enough to survive one. You just learned what those habits actually need to look like.